Senator who was in the room today for Hegseth's confirmation hearing, Senate Armed Service Committee member, Republican Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. Senator, thank you so much for your time today. In your questioning this afternoon, you said we need someone who's going to go in there and fight for innovation and change. When talking about Pete Hegseth, your colleagues called it one of the most important jobs in the world. It's overseeing a workforce of about 3 million people. Hegseth conceded today that he's never led an organization of more than a couple hundred. You're in essence evaluating Hegseth's resume here. What about Pete Hegseth, in your mind, makes him ready to make that jump?
Well, I think he's a reformer at heart. I think that's why President Trump picked him. And quite frankly, a lot of the nominees across the board, one of the consistent themes is they're going to go into these agencies that typically look for the same pool of Washington insiders and go in there and disrupt things and provide the change that President Trump ran on. At the Pentagon in particular, there's a few things I think that are really important. First is this divisive DEI ideology where it pits the room by race has no place in our military, and it's hurting our recruiting. We need to focus in a real way on China, which is our chief adversary, and then this procurement reform, which you brought up. China has a bigger Navy than we have now. Not a better Navy, but a bigger Navy, and we have to be nimble, and we have to be able to adapt to a changing landscape through innovation. And the Pentagon has failed 7 audits in a row and just really not known for that.
In an apparent reference to Hegseth's past and allegations about excessive drinking, your colleague, Republican Senator Markwayne Mullins, said to Hegseth today, "We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes." Hegseth today did not answer whether he would resign if he drinks on the job. If any Secretary of Defense is caught drinking on the job, in your estimation, should they resign their post?
Well, Pete Hegseth has been really clear. He's committed to not drinking on the job to address some of the concerns that people have brought up, which is what this process is all about. But I think the Democrats today used this platform, sadly, to try to land a bunch of punches that didn't actually land. And the American people want unification here. They want a military that's lethal and that protects them, as opposed to all this outside circus that they were focused on today. So I think he's been pretty clear about that. He's also been clear that he's made a lot of mistakes. And through his belief in Jesus and his wife, he's kind of a changed man. He was very open about that today, which I think was refreshing.
Turning now to the devastation in California, roughly 12,000 structures destroyed, fires still burning tonight. Some of your Republican colleagues, including Speaker Johnson, have suggested placing conditions on aid. Republican senators in Florida and North Carolina say that that's a bad idea. Florida Republican Rick Scott said, quote, "I think we ought to do aid the way we do everybody else." Do you agree with him?
I don't know what Speaker Johnson is referring to, so it'd be difficult for me to comment specifically on what those conditions might be. But I think we want to help the people in California. We want to help the people in North Carolina. We want to help the people in Florida. Sadly, that aid has been slow with North Carolina. I'm not really sure why it's not been a priority. $200 million for Ukraine has certainly been a priority for this administration. So I think a lot of Americans are concerned about that. But we want to treat Californians the way that they're being treated in Florida and North Carolina and be there to help. I will say, though, Linsey, that doesn't absolve the leadership in California for a lot of mismanagement, whether it's forest mismanagement or water mismanagement. We got to make sure this doesn't happen again. But what you're seeing right now, still unfolding, is devastating. People have lost their lives in their homes. And so there's probably a better way to do things in California. But I know that we want to be helpful.
So I know that Mike Johnson didn't specify what those conditions would be. So are you clear that regardless, California should get government aid?
I think, yeah, of course, there's help that's needed. I think infrastructure, I mean, none of that's fully formed yet, so I don't want to get too far out in front of this, but we would treat this as a natural disaster and be there for our fellow Americans, no question.
Unless something changes, 5 days from now, TikTok ban is set to go into effect. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is pushing for legislation to extend that deadline for TikTok to divest. Do you think TikTok poses a security threat? Should this ban go forward the day before inauguration?
I do. I think it's a national security risk. I'm pretty clear about this, and there's no bigger champion for free speech than me. I brought the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit when I was Attorney General of Missouri, but this is a little different. This is the Communist Party of China tracking movements, keystrokes, listening in on Americans. I don't think during World War II we would have ever considered allowing Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan to have that kind of access to data and information on Americans. And so, look, TikTok can continue. It just shouldn't be owned by the CCP.
All right, Senator Eric Schmitt, we thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime.